Welcome to the Cultivating You podcast. On today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with the real George of the jungle. He's an all-around spiritual being, entrepreneur, and keeper of snakes and reptiles. So stay tuned to learn how to discover your spirit animal.
Welcome to the Cultivating You podcast with Anthony Dwayne.
All right, let's do this. All right, welcome to today's episode of Cultivating You podcast. I am your host, Anthony Dwayne, and I have somebody very special with us here today. It is the one, the only, the real George of the jungle. And how you doing, George?
Pretty well, brother, and yourself. Appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today. Actually, it's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to talk to you because, we used to work together, right? We used to work together at Chevrolet selling vehicles together about 5-6 years ago. And that's kind of where our acquaintance has started. And to me, it's been really odd, especially just watching you and just observing like myself over this past 4 or 5 years. I've always felt like we've been on like a similar path almost, right? Like we've been on, we've gone from this like shirt and tie and nice watches and nice pens and shoes and slacks and this kind of like not so much corporate but like salesy kind of environment, dress up, clean shaven, haircut, and we've gone from that type of environment and kind of jumped into this, like, I don't know, what I deem as more of like an entrepreneurial lifestyle. You with your animals, keeping your animals, your snakes and everything like that, growing your social media presence. And because, like social media just seems almost like a business card these days. But I've done kind of the same thing as far as like the mind shrooms business. Not so much anymore, but like with that, like just going on this path of maybe even like getting into a little bit of spirituality and just finding our highest selves and finding this path that we're paving for ourselves rather than doing it how someone else wants us to do it, or do it having to make phone calls at this time and do all this. So we've kind of jumped away from that structure, and it's really exciting having you on the podcast now, as far as like you having your own podcast starting very soon, which is going to be awesome. But like I said, like I just feel like we're kind of like kindred souls, you know what I'm saying? We've been on this same path, but we actually never really had like a super solid like friendship. We've been more of acquaintances and just kind of observing each other. So I don't know if you've got that same kind of vibe, if that's your perception as well. But that's just something that I've kind of noticed over the past 5 years or so. But if you want to extrapolate on that a little bit.
Absolutely, man. I can definitely relate with you. I've always seen you like you had a different perception of life, even when we were doing ups on the line, selling cars. I would see that there was some type of key that you had. And like, it's okay. Like this guy has that third eye, either it's a little bit open or it's winking at me. So it kind of gave me that feeling of, okay, this guy is spiritual, so I'm going to respect him with a little bit higher authority. You tend to have a little bit more of an open mind and open way of seeing things. So yeah, I felt that. But being on the run and testosterone to the T and high as hell, trying to sell cars, you know how it feels when you're on that board and you're just like waiting for your up and everybody's just talking shit to each other. Yeah. It's really hard to actually have a solid, strong, intimate conversation to that level in a circumstance like that. But I get where you're coming from. Like there was some type of spiritual connection either between us or somehow it lingered and expanded. And I've seen some of the things that I went into as well. You seem to also be a king of San Pedro, some of the spiritual practices with the psychedelic treatments and all of the things that come with spirituality. To me, man, when I left Watson, it was more of like next step, next step, next step. I'm gonna get higher, higher. I'm gonna get that bag. I'm gonna get that bag. And in reality, it was my journey. That's kind of like what led me to the same path that you most likely are on.
Yeah, for sure. No, like that's actually was going to be my question is like, was that the kind of the jumping point or the starting point for all that? Because for me, it was like, that was where I realized like, I don't, I don't, I like, don't get me wrong. I like dressing up. I like looking fly and putting a suit on every now and then, but I didn't think that was necessarily like the lifestyle I wanted to live. I wanted to have something that I created. I could have long hair, I could have tattoos, I could wear the clothes that I wanted to wear and still present myself in a professional manner and dictate my own time. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Um, is is this new path? I mean, I don't know if it's new or not, but like, have you always been into animals, or like even while you
So
were touring cars, or is that just something you kind of delved into and just got really like passionate about, or?
it really took a turn. And in order to actually walk through those steps and explain how it went down,
Mhm.
it's like I have to show you the journey, and it's like I can show you little photographs and experiences, but to
Yeah.
actually deal with what we go through, it's really hard to actually explain. And
Mm.
I'm not saying that my story resembles at a higher level than anybody else's. By all means, everybody has their story. But if we digress a little bit back to where I came from, I'm pretty sure you remember, a dude coming on the bus selling cars. you know, and
Yeah.
from that point, I went to life insurance and I met this guy called Jesse Antla. He recruited me for this company, which was what most people consider a pyramid scheme where you recruit a certain amount of people and then you get to a higher level and you get a higher percentage of commission. So it was all
Was that
commission
America?
earning. No, it was not Primerica. It was people
Oh,
helping people.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I actually pitched you on the table there for
Mm.
insurance at one point in time. But that was the reason why I left Watson. And believe it or not, I got into the hands of powerful people and people who had higher authority, and I was astonished. So I took a devious route, and I ended up in jail for about 2, 3 months. I was mass trafficking marijuana across state lines from Las Vegas to Arizona. Um, when I got caught there, and my submission and my release from jail, I came back to Tucson, and it was more of an eye opener. The things that I saw there, the things that came into my life at that point in time, was what guided me into my spirituality and what guided me into my animals at that point. I lost a lot. I lost respect for my wife. I lost respect for my family. I did a lot of corrupted things in my own persona that I think that are immoral. But I bounced back from that because I found the path that I desired, that I wanted to continue with. Um, Coming back, from jail and leaving, my vehicle, leaving everything, my funds, everything that I possibly had in Lake Havasu, when I was arrested, kind of did humble me to the point where I'm like, okay, this is not the end, but I know that there's an expectation for me, that I have a higher purpose, that it's not just inclusive to me, it's a higher purpose for the people around me. The reason I say that is because when I went into jail, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the politics, but there's segregation of races, whites, woods, um, Chicanos, Paisas, and the blacks.
Mm.
Where I was at the point, and this is something that threw me back to my childhood when I came in, there's the Chicanos and the Paisas. Me, myself, I grew up in the United States. I have respect for both heritages, as an American and as Hispanic. I don't find any controversy in both. But growing up as a person who knows how to speak Spanish fluently, if a person hears you speak Spanish fluently and you're a Chicano, you're a disgrace to them or a mixed blood. So you never really fit in both heritages. You're just kind of in the middle. And I experienced that when I was in jail. Like, are you a Paisa or are you a Chicano? And Chicanos were more as a politics. Like, you have to keep your ground, you have to look out for your body, and there's always some type of argument going on with the Chicanos. Well, luckily, when I came into my pod, where I was being, singled into my area or to my section, whether if I was going to be Paisa, Chicano, black or white, whatever. A guy comes up to me with the Santa Muerte on the back and an El Leguat tattoo in front of his chest. And he says, "You're hijo de Obatala." And in that moment, it was like, I'm safe. Like, this is my saving, like somebody has my back in here. Like, I'm good. And that was the head of the Paisas, the person who dealt with the Hispanics, the people who came from the actual Hispanic culture, or who came over from the border, people who were illegal here in the United States. And he says, "You know something, and I know something. Let's go to my room." And he read me cards. He was reading me my future with poker playing cards. Like, he was telling me what was going to happen. And in the single moment where he started reading me, a card pulled out and he says, "Somebody's going to call you with great authority to tell you good news." And in that moment, bro, I'm not lying to the T. I can tell you, I can put it on everything. I hear the fucking phone ring downstairs in the pod. "Jorge Flores, there's a call for you from your lawyer." Like, in the moment where this guy is reading me this card, like, it was insane. It was almost like it was planned,
Yeah.
But it happened. And that's what led me to that point to where, like, okay, so what I've been practicing prior to even this has some legitimacy with me. It has to do with me, not only myself, but everybody around me. And as I stayed in jail, months passed and people came and people went. I found myself with everybody attacking me in a certain way, not attacking me in a bad way, but asking me questions like, how can I heal myself? Or how can I help myself? Or what can I do to do this? And everybody started calling me Padrino. And in the culture of Yoruba, what I practice, which is synchronicity of both the Nigerian religion and the Catholicism religion, which I don't practice to an extent, I'm only a live representation of. I found out that there was more connection in between the people that were there and me than the people that were outside in myself. So in reality, my spirituality pushed me to that point as a catalyst to blow up to something more astronomical. And when I was released, this guy was still in contact with me, the head of the Pisces. I was still in contact with his mom. His mother was into Yoruba religion. I did work for him. I did work for his mom, for his brother, and all of these people, slowly but surely, went released and left prison safely, and everything happened as how it should. When I came out of jail, I had two perspectives. It was get to the hustle and get the bag again, or start your life and find what you want to do. Because I knew behind my head that there was a purpose to everything that I was doing. It wasn't just like I threw it down the drain and everything was lost for a reason. I honestly learned a lot with me leaving Watson, to the point of me going to Vegas and live out there and actually working with my mentors. It was a one-on-one journey with these people where they would take us out in the mornings at 5 o'clock in the morning, going to people at casinos, talking to old folk, trying to sell them insurance, IRAs, policies, just getting that extra hustle in. And the type of people that I met were the ones who set me up. It wasn't myself, my work. It was more like the people that I met were just kind of like stepping stones. It's almost like it's leading you to this catalyst to just get there, to your point. And like that journey, like I was saying, when I got to Tucson and I opened up my thought and I started working more with Santeria and Verua, I started doing more things that were more logistic to me rather than actual spiritual. So I started going to interviews and doing projects with companies here in town, like Aaron Bax or some of the traders that work here on the north side. And one of the guys that interviewed me was Puerto Rican, and he practiced the Yoruban religion. And he said, "That's garbage." He said, what you're practicing is teaching you to have reassurance on something that doesn't exist. And I told him, I don't believe in anything. The only thing that I believe in is the entity that they represent. So a little bit of what I practice, what I can explain to you without showing off the entire practice, is they are entities like water, air, and fire. like thunder, lightning, and roar. All of these entities represent nature, like the deity of Atala represents justice and the big figure of respect. Oshun represents the horse, the females who are sexually aroused, the siren. Elegua is also represented as Eshu, which is in lots of religions Hades, or they also refer to Aphrodite as Oshun, Yamaya, the queen of the ocean, or Ya, the queen of the cemetery. All of these deities are a representation of nature. So that's what brought me back to getting into animals. A whole, spaghetti worth of deals and things that I have to navigate through to actually figure out what I wanted to do. No, I was never into animals prior to when you met me or when we knew each other. I did not keep anything. I probably had dogs and cats and a couple birds and maybe a couple pets here and there, leopard geckos, but I never actually kept to the extent that I'm keeping now. Now, what pushed me to this was my spiritual work. I went through knowing what I wanted, who I wanted to become. And in my spiritual work, I figured out that I have a path of what they call Ogun, or a path of San Francisco de Asís, or Orula, which is Orunila, the one who tells you your future, the one who is the oracle of the Orishas. Mm. So his path as a saint or a santo, what they call him, and the only reason they call it a santo is because of the synchronicity, and we'll explain a little bit more later of that. But he was a connection between humans and the animal race itself, because he believed that animals also carried a type of energy that helped you either evolve or continue in your life, either if it was your spirit animal or if it was some type of connection that you had with yourself. So as a child, I always had abnormal experiences. I don't know if it was the trauma that I went through, and I done my my shadow work and figured out who exactly pushed me through that limit, or what exactly were the pressures that unlocked myself. And when I figured that all of these things went in course, for example, when I was smaller, my family was very Catholic, and they believed in the saints and all of these works within religion and Jesus and all that. We went to this retreat, and that was my first experience when I was 7. They were looking for some type of spigot of water, and the spigot of water was a big feed for the barn. I guess it was this big barn that they had, that they would do spiritual retreats, and they'd take kids so they could actually understand what God was about. They took them through the stations of the cross, and they actually reenacted the process of Jesus Christ. Now that they refer to as a ceremony of exposure, or a type of cursillo. So it's a living moment or a representation of the shoes of Jesus. And I'm not Catholic. I don't endorse any type of religion at all. But what happened in that situation was that they were looking for a spigot that was going to release water into that field so they can do their ceremonies and actually have something to drink from. This was a location that was probably 40 to 50 miles away from the city, and they couldn't find it. And I told my grandpa, I said, there's a spigot right below that statue that has 2 horns, and it has like this lady who has this blanket over her face. And he's like, that's like a Mary or whatever. He took it as if it was a Virgin Mary. So I showed him where it was at. And there happened to have been a statue at that point where they found the spigot, but the statue was not there. Now, I hadn't heard from my mother since I was born, probably about 3 years old. My mother left us when I was a child. And on that moment, or that second, when that happened, that same day, my mother calls me 7 years later after me contact with her. So it was episodes like that that continued to happen, throughout my entire life. Like, okay, so there's something else other than just my thought. There's a sixth sense that I was born with. Okay, how do I manage this, or how do I keep it? So when I first get into the diving of Santeria, the religion, I'm a skeptic. I don't really believe in any of spiritual stuff at this point. My wife takes me to this African lady, which is now my madrina, And this African lady reads me. I stand in front of her, or I'm sitting in front of her, and I'm just like literally laughing at this lady, you know. And she's like, "You're a skeptic. You don't believe." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. I'm taking this as a joke." And she told me something about my father that had died when I was 16. She said, "Your father, you know, had told you that you had some type of gift, but that you had to keep it secret. And your father had told you that your mom was always a good person. Father had told you that you had visions about statues." And that's where it was like, okay, this lady's up to something. This lady's legit. And that's where it hit reality. Days after we started practicing, she did the whole lavado de cabeza. She took me her babalao. The babalao read me, and my first reading was a fun no fun, which means phenomena or spiritual phenomena. So when you're being read, there's a series of 16 shells, 5 that dictate the lies, which means that they don't allow the other shells to lie, because as everything is living, it also has a truth and a false form. So the shell itself, like this. So that shell right there, that is the backside of it, and this is the front. So she has 5 of these, and the rest of the 11 are the ones that tell the fortune or the combination. There's a series of 400 stories per 16 saints or orishas plus 1, meaning that there's still room for that phantom or that actual pantheon, so that they can join at the end of the rest. Meaning that if there is a chance for another deity to actually come into our existence, who actually enlightens our generation, he would be added to that orisha line, because this is a constant evolving living religion or practice. So those 16 orishas or shells, as she was reading me, they came in 10 and 10. So it's very rare or very uncommon for you to get a numeration of 1 and 1. And what they call it is a nimawa, or a rarity, which is a twin. So kind of like when a twin is born, it is a rarity. So she said that I needed to talk to the babalao, and she presented me to Oshun, which was my mom, you know, the whore. She was represented as her, and she presented me to Obatala, which she believes is my crown. I have not been laid my crown, so I can't say that I'm a full-on initiative. I have to pass to Ifa, which is another land of Yoruba, or another section of Yoruba. Once you pass to Ifa, you become what they say a babalao. First, you start as an Ayowo, which is an initiate. From an initiate, you go to a babalao, or from an initiate Ayowo, which is a common santero. And then once you're a santero, you become the babalao. In order to go to that step, the orishas have to request. So nothing is done upon your favor or anybody else's favor. Everything is done through the oracle system. Everything is asked. So most people do think, you know, this is just a tarot reading. This is a common scripture. This is just something that anybody else could get as a fortune cookie. It's living. It's something that you can't fathom until you actually experience something spiritual like that, as you are aware with shamanism. The last ceremony before my madrina left, or my godmother left, she took me to the babalao, and Oshun asked for my santo, and that's where things got a little bit more weird. Ogun had said I was going to go to jail, and this was 2 months prior that I was booked in. She had already done the reading with the babalao, and the babalao had said, you have to do this ebo, or this offering to the deity, in order to surpass that way. Now, the things that Santeria do, a lot of people don't find it logical, but I somehow found a science to it, or some type of logical sense. As a way of cleaning yourself, we use fruit, and 10% of it is vegetables and all types of food. 10% of it will only be considered matanza, which is birds and any other type of goat or type of sacrificed animal. I personally cannot handle the animal when I sacrifice it. My orisha does not allow me to cut the head off of the animal. Now, in 1992, there is a law passed that allowed the santero to practice matanza. I don't know if you knew, but there is a law that states that if you're not a private butcher, you cannot butcher an animal inside of your home. So what they did is that they passed this law in 1992. Chapenen, one of the guys who started this whole process, was actually a rabbi, and that rabbi practiced kosher. And he said if they actually pass this law to stop you from practicing the sacrifice of animals, that means that all of our culture will degrade eventually. So they took it to court and then passed the law, in 1992, that we allow the matanza. I am not for it, but there is a process to what we do. When you leave, let's say, a fruit or a vegetable, like I was guiding to, let's say you leave it at the ocean or at a river, and you are asking for blessings to you. You are asking for nourishment for your wealth. You are asking for your child to become healthy. Let's say they have some type of illness, and you ask this deity, please cure my child. And this deity takes this fruit. And in order to actually have this type of step or drip effect or type of ripple effect, it has to have some type of karmic energy in order for it to work. So you have to have what they believe as faith, or as what we believe in the scientific world as the double split theory, where you believe it's there without actually seeing it. If you believe that, let's say that watermelon was eaten by a turtle, and then that turtle crosses a path in front of a deer. Now that deer spends 10 minutes at that roadway because he dropped something, that turtle dropped some type of excrement that deer is smelling now. Now that deer stops in front of this highway because it was delayed 10 minutes because of this turtle that was eating this watermelon. This deer that stopped 10 minutes in front of this roadway stopped this family with 13 kids. Okay, 13 kids in the family of 2. And they were about to hit this train that was going to run over them if this turtle hadn't eaten this watermelon, and then this deer hadn't eaten the excrement of that turtle. So what I'm trying to explain is that ripple effect left a little bit of residue of that karmic effect to save somebody else's life. So the work that you do spiritually doesn't only benefit you, but it benefits all of the people around you, or the living creatures around you. And that's where I found, like, there's some legitimacy to this, because it does make sense. Nothing is a coincidence. Everything is not set in stone. Everything is just sort of its way. But that's essentially what led me to animals.
Yeah, no, that's quite the amazing story, and I love the way it's mapped out like that. And I totally agree. Like, I think I was reading something, excuse me, just last night, where it says, if you were to save one person's life, it's kind of like you're saving the entire world. And it's because we're all on these different timelines, but or changing yourself kind of changes the world. And I don't know, it just resonates with me. And even just with that story, man, I'm still getting a lot of these parallels between me and you, which is kind of crazy, especially like the synchronicities. And you've been having them since you were a very young kid, it sounds like, these like spiritual synchronicities. And for me personally, like, I've only recently just started experiencing them as I've gotten a little bit deeper, because like you, I was very skeptical. Like at one point, I mean, for about 5-7 years or so, I was like a pretty ardent atheist. And at that time, yeah, I was like my world was like very gray at that time. There was not a lot of color, and I didn't, it's almost like that saying, like, if you don't believe in magic, you're never going to see it. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like, it makes me feel like we're antennas a little bit, not just like people experiencing things, but we're receiving information from like the universe. And if our antenna is closed off, we're not going to get that info. But as soon as we open it up and we let our vibration kind of reverberate, then we start to receive things. And then we see all these synchronicities, and they kind of lead us down this path. And for me, it just feels like the more I see those synchronicities, the more I know that I'm on the right path. And you kind of just got to follow the breadcrumbs like that. And it sounds like that's what we're doing. We're kind of our path is leading us, you know what I'm saying? And it's I don't know, I got goosebumps, but that's kind of cool. That was a really amazing story. And you know, I've been spending a lot of time with the Native American community, and just learning a lot about the cultures like that as well. And what's great is they have a lot of lessons from animals. You know, I work with the children's program, and you know, right now we're learning about horses and how they can, you know, teach you patience. And you know, they show you when you're working with an animal, it shows you your frustrations. And you know, like braiding a horsehair or braiding some rope, you know, they use three twine, and one is meant to symbolize your, you know, your mental, one is your physical, and one is your spiritual. And as you're twining this rope, and maybe it gets a little bit difficult, and you get caught up, or you experience a knot or something, and these twines get tangled, you know, it can kind of show you where you're at spiritually or mentally, if you're kind of blocked up, or if you're kind of feeling you know, impatient or things like that. So it strikes me as like very, very cool to look at the world in this way. And I just wanted to ask you, is in working with these animals, are they teaching you things like this? Are you getting lessons from having handling these animals and learning specific things uh, through these animals?
Absolutely. I find myself honestly asking that question every day, and most people have questions like that. Like, what is it that you figured out, or what do you see and change? And an animal like a reptile, it is very distinct to actually understand its demeanor or its personality. You know, it's more like it's in the moment. It's like a dog. People look at dogs like a hierarchy, when in reality, there's no such thing. And I was having this conversation actually at the club the other day with one of my mentors. And he's like, you know, like dogs don't really have a hierarchy. And why are you explaining snakes like a hierarchy? And I'm like, well, that's true, you know, like that makes total sense. Like I look at my dog and like I ask her once, like, come here, and she doesn't want to come. But I say it in a nice demeanor, a nice way, but I'm vibrating with that energy. They tend to come in a more orderly fashion and react to you faster because you're showing off that emotion. But if you're constantly tied up the ass and you have something up your butt, it's kind of hard to actually navigate, you know, to actually talk to this animal, communicate. As if, like if you were talking to your wife, you know, like how can you talk to your wife if you're pissed off, or how can she talk to you if she's giving you this annoying vibe? Like, come on, bro, chill out. And it's the same thing with these lizards. Like they will literally tell you, like, I don't want to be fucked with. I want you to leave me alone. Hell with. As
Yeah.
soon as I open the enclosure, I invade their space because I want to desensitize the animal to the point where I can feel them, I can grab them at any point in time that I want. It is very hard to actually change the train of thought of a reptile because they don't have the same emotions that we have. So
Right.
kind of like the whole lovey-dovey with dogs, like, oh, this is a cute little puppy. They honestly don't give a shit. Like, yeah, they're nice, they're there, but they're there and they're tolerating you because the fact that you have exposed them to that. I'm not saying that they don't have feelings. I 100% do believe lizards can develop feelings, but snakes are just high sentience. Like they're so evolved. Like the emotion process is not. It's not that it's not there. It's more like it's so high that their love and affection is described in a different way. Like with the snake, it's either you don't want to fuck with them when you know you put your hand in there, or you desensitize them to the point where they're so calm, like they don't really care. So it's not like I can tell you this animal's really calm and chill, and they know themselves by name and like all these traits, and they know how to sit and come. No, it's more like I have to understand them. I have to give them that respect to actually let them understand me. So if I have a rhinoceros iguana, and I'll bring some out right now, let me put this out here so the smoke doesn't bother them. But if I hold a rhinoceros iguana, um, I don't just approach it and grab it. You know, I allow it to come out of its cage. I allow it to climb up my leg. And rhinoceros iguanas tend to love to be up in the high areas. So my iguanas will naturally crawl up my head and just pose on my head because that's what I've allowed them to do. If you just keep an animal in a cage and enclose in its entire life, then you're not really giving it any type of enrichment, any type of stimuli. I mean, how can you expect yourself to thrive in a box, you know?
Right.
But yeah, man, back to that question. Feeling an emotion with animals and what I've learned more about myself is insane because I was not patient, especially with my family. I found out that I was very egoistic, that I was somehow narcissistic in a way because honestly, bro, like you've been in those steps, like you know what it is to be a sales guy. Like you feel so wrong at that point where you're like, did I really just hustle this person out that much? Like, did I really have to go to that point? Did
Mhm.
did it have to go that way? And that's your self being, like your morals, like you grew up like as a better persona, but you have a higher vision of you. You have higher respect because you have your values.
Right.
So that's what animals taught me, like to actually love myself and love who I am as my own persona. Because I'll be honest with you, brother, like I would tick off, like my daughters would be doing something and I'm like, leave that alone. Like I had such a fast reaction. My patience was just not there. And that was due to the fast life, the fast living. Like I wanted this, I wanted that. I was so ready, I was so prepared for this that I was neglecting everything around me. And
Right.
you know, it was like if I was losing not only myself, but everybody and everything that loved me around me as well. And don't get me wrong, like in order to become who you want, you have to go through those roads where you have to know what is love and what is not, because somebody could be loving you, but they actually hate you. Even your own family, you know, like it doesn't matter what it is, but you have to learn how to let go of those relationships to actually grow. And that's what I learned with these animals. Like I lost a lot of them, and the pain that I went through that was learning because, you know, you have to dial down in certain temperatures. You have to dial down in certain humidity ranges. And if you're not duplicating the same ambient that you have of an animal that lives in Australia, then that animal's not going to make it. So
Mhm.
I went through that pain. I felt the pain of losing an animal that, you know, not only that I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on these animals, but the pain of actually having this connection with an animal that connected higher with me than an actual human,
Right.
because it allowed me to have its confidence. It allowed me to have its own demeanor. You know, it's like a replication of me. Like if I put my entire heart into this animal, and you
Yeah.
just fade away and take it all from me. Which to
And
a point, I mean,
you have this sense of responsibility as well with these animals, you know, it's like they're not just things to look at for sure, you know, it's like, and I resonate with what you're saying, like about having this kind of like quick temper with the kids and stuff and always being on the go and having like this sense of urgency. And I think that's like a lesson that I've learned as well, is like patience is huge. Like there is like this hurry up and go and get things done and don't waste time. And I understand that, but I also understand that sometimes you got to hurry up and just wait, you know, like sometimes we just need patience to let things unfold. And that's I don't know, that's kind of a lesson I've learned just through business in general. And that's one of the surprising things about business that I've come to the realization of, is that it in itself is a spiritual experience. And that might not sound like, they might not sound like they coincide with each other, but they do, because everything that we do is spiritual, because it teaches us like how we do anything is how we do everything. And that's like you know, I had to learn to like pull back the reins a little bit and
definitely.
and be like, all right, things are going to unfold, and I don't always have to push and push and push and push. And you get in this high state of like anxiety and like, I have to do this, I have to get it done now. And then like you just scramble yourself basically. And then, yeah, so I just want to say I kind of resonate with that. But, you know, with this being like cultivating you being dedicated to, you know, growth and personal development and spirituality and just becoming like our higher selves and growth in general, I came across a word that you know, in preparation for this episode with you, and you're probably very familiar with it, ecdysis, which is, you know, the shedding of a snake's skin. Maybe you call it something else, but I just kind of googled it like a nerd. But but they do this throughout their lives, right? They're constantly growing, they're always growing, and they're going through these phases of development, and they're shedding old skin. And I like to think of that as like us shedding the things that we are outgrowing, things that don't serve us anymore. And a lot of those things are our bad habits, and our shame, and our guilt, and our anger towards stuff like that. But yeah, so I guess what I said that to just ask this: is there any like certain like specific disciplines that you have used to help spur on your like personal growth? Or has this business, have you seen like a exponential amount of growth personally in this last 4 to 5 years during this your animal keeping and your business in relation to like the rest of your life?
Definitely. Uh, Animals really were the shift. Um, I'm not going to say that when I started, getting into these different genetics or animals that were just high end and beautiful, I didn't get them just because of the egoistic part of it. I understand they are beauty.
Mhm.
It was more of my discipline. I am a very unorganized person who loves to have fun. I'm a person, a kid at heart, honestly. My wife calls me a fucking kid. She's like, stop being a fucking kid all the time. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, that's just me. Like, that's my persona. And that gave me more discipline, especially with my photography, because as I like to take a picture, it's very open to me to just try to amend it or switch something up or just tweak it a little bit more instead of just sticking with the program. It's very hard for me to stick with the program because I love my freelance. I love to just be free. I'm honestly an open spirit. And that's what these animals taught me, that if they don't get fed, if they don't get food or water change every day, if they don't get clean, they slowly start to deteriorate themselves. So that is a lesson to myself that I'm slowly going to deteriorate if I don't keep up with doing my bed, washing my teeth, picking up the smallest thing. It's not just about you getting your shit done. It's more about, like you say in some of your podcasts, winning your day, bro. Like that, you just got to win that day to actually go to the next win, and to the next one, and to the next one. And that's what these animals taught me, bro, to actually have responsibility about who I am. Because honestly, as being a stoner, man, I was honestly a stoner. I was going to Watson Chevrolet high as fuck, trying to whip cars out, and trying to not hit a car so I don't get fucking tested.
Yeah, I think
But
I was I think I was drunk 70% of the time. Like, it's probably why I sold cars so well. Yeah.
I did horrible. I was a horrible salesman there, man. I can honestly say. But I did learn a lot of my practice there, a lot of the first basics there with Sergio and Steve. Mark took me under his wing, man. I remember he would see me all the time, pull up on the bus. He's like, you don't got any extra clothes, you don't have any extra slacks or anything. And he just donated me a whole bunch of shirts with nice cufflinks and all kinds of shit, man. And that made me so happy, man, because I knew that I was welcome, and it was just a gift of gesture. And
Yep.
that's what kind of like led me on to believe, like, okay, so these people are not just here for myself, but they're here to help others, and not to use it as an example for me to have glory there, but I myself want to replicate that with others.
Mhm.
Before you met me, brother, um, that's when I had dabbled into Santeria and everything had gotten weird. There's a reason that we are talking now, and that this is why I have asked you about shamanism before. When my godmother took me the last time to the Babalao's house, there was a conversation between me and him alone. My godmother was in the front, and then she had came in half conversation too, and she inputted. But he had told me that he had a bóveda or something like this set up on his room, and it was a spiritual board. As the saying says, el santo or el muerto para el santo, meaning that the dead is the one who gives the door to the holy God or to the one. So in order to open your door, you have to talk to the dead, which it's a parable. It's not necessarily saying you have to talk to a dead person, but yes, they investigate who your ancestors are. And a picture of me as a child was stuck to his bóveda. And right there, bro, I just started tearing, like, what is going on? Who are you? Like, how do you have my picture and my grandfather next to you, in your thing? And he's like, back in the back in the 70s, when I first started, I met your grandparents, and your grandparents used to come and bring you, and they made me do something for you because they were shamans. So they suppressed everything that they believed in. They left their culture, they left their beliefs, because I guess they had some type of argument with what they believed in, and they just were tired of it. But they suppressed everything of me, and they put this block on me. And he was the one who had put the block on top of me, this Bawala. So I knew that I had some type of connection with natives or some type of thing. So when they open up the spiritual cuadro, or they do what they call the seance or open circle, that's when I figure out that my first ancestor in my head, or the one that's always protecting me, is some type of native wearing a big type of hat with feathers and a big white feather in the front. Yeah. And he wears a shell on his ear. And this is the man who opens my door every time, the one who takes care of me, the one who strikes an arrow at all of my enemies. And that's where I was like, shit, like, this is why I have connection with some people. And it started developing onto more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, yeah, shamanism is, it's very, like, important to me. I know it's like, I don't take it very lightly, because I feel like a lot of people these days, especially, just want to jump off and just call themselves shamans because they've done a couple of ayahuasca ceremonies or something. And like, I would never be that presumptuous. You know what I'm saying? I would never desecrate that in that way. I'm very interested in it, and I love it. And I myself have had very mystical experiences on high doses of mushrooms and things like that. Where I've had visions of being a Native American, like an ancient being. I once had this vision of being an ancient Indian, and my body was actually melded into a planet. Half of my body was in a planet, and half of my body was sticking out, and my body was turning to stone. And I had a full-on headdress on, and I was just kind of floating in space. I was on a planet with no atmosphere, and I was watching planets collide. And I basically died alone in the vastness of the universe. It was probably one of the craziest experiences I've ever had in my life. And then I just kind of exploded out of I was laying on my bed in the dark, and I kind of my chest exploded off my bed, like I was born again and rebirthed. And like and I've always just, during these mystical experiences, I've always had deep connection with, like, just primal, earthy, organic experiences, just rock and water and stone and animals a lot. They're just always a part of that. And so I always take that away with me, because I know everyone has different experiences on these things. And I feel like the mushroom or whatever I'm on is delving deep into my brain, my that old brain that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years, ancient brain, and it's tapping into something that we're part of. And now, as I'm getting older and I'm doing all these things, I'm actually moving away from the substances and stuff. And I think that's because I've gone through a certain amount of healing in myself and through these practices. And I'm starting to want to help other people experience that for themselves. Now, I don't think everyone wants to do, mushrooms, but I think healing comes in a lot of different ways. And a lot of it is natural. You know what I'm saying? A lot of it is the food we eat and the activity we put ourselves through, and meditations and therapy even, and things like that. So I do feel like a deep calling for me to be or pursue healing in that sense. And that's why I love hearing your stories, because you've had these experiences with these people and these kind of certain practices and rituals, and I'm myself am looking to dive into that a little bit more, but I want it to happen organically and natural, and not.
Tomorrow we're actually having a ceremony for Elegua. You're more than welcome to come in. I'm doing the cleaning for all of my house and the people that I've cleansed. and then the elders that are with me as well. We're going to be here behind my door. We're going to feed El Igua. You're going to take your El Igua. You can take your own coconut. You can start your practice as well. You know, it's something so easy like that. But I only deal with the spiritual part. I cannot work with the whole matanza or the whole santo part because I have not gotten my corona. I am lavado. I don't call myself a healer, but in the process, if I do heal you by helping you spiritually, then by all means. But I cannot call myself a healer. I am not somebody who has this bestowed power. I'm just some random dude who keeps animals, you know?
Exactly. No, that's how I feel about it too. And I wouldn't want to call myself that, but you know, I feel like a connection to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's just part of the path. I think it's also part of the path, and it will be found eventually, you know.
And see, with my madrina, she always told me, because I look at other santeros, Puerto Ricans, Brazilians, they all worship the same type of deity. See, the problem was that when the Europeans brought up slaves from Africa, these motherfuckers didn't know that they brought 27 different races, you know. But the crazy thing was that they all worship the same damn deities, you know. 27 races in the same continent all worship the same deities, whether if it was Egyptian, whether if it was more northern Ghana or Nigeria. Yoruba seemed to be some type of land, and this is the way that we look at it or navigate it. When you're initiated, you're welcome into the orishas. And then you navigate to another land called Mayombe. Mayombe is the dark side, or what a lot of people like to call the dark side. It's the more material part of it, where there's a point where you can go to somebody who is a palero and tell them, I want to kill this person. And then they draw something up and that person is dead the next day. That's how material it is. But there's a lot of karma that comes with that work. The person who practices is usually condemned to the poorest life, the worst life of ever, because they're so good that all the karmic energy that they're taking in is from the person that they're helping. So it's things like that you need to actually learn, you know, like I can't just expose myself or my family into something that is with another person, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. To switch gears a little bit, I did have a question about, I guess, legislation for like selling animals and things like that, because I think I saw you post something in the recent months about, you know, something that may be affecting the way that you're able to purchase and sell animals and ship them and stuff like that. And I was also watching, like in Florida, they have like a lot of problems with this because a lot of exotic animal like dealers and stuff or people are just letting these animals go off into the wilderness, and then they're, you know, copulating, and then they're becoming almost like a nuisance and stuff like that. So Florida's having to put all this legislation in that's gonna, you know, that affects these dealers like directly, and they have thousands and thousands of dollars in animals and enclosures and investment in this whole thing, and it's their livelihood, you know what I'm saying? And I was just kind of wondering if there's anything like that here in Arizona. Are you being affected by any of that, or is there, if there's any way that other people can like help the cause, if there is like some kind of petition or anything like that?
Absolutely, man. USARC. So there is what you just explained, the same thing. USARC is United States Association of Reptile Keepers, usarc.org. If you do go to their website, you'll see all of the laws, all the statutes. We do have a team in Florida who navigates this, everything going on with the law system. If there is any type of misinformation, or let's say law slipped into a proposition or to some type of ordinance, this team dissects it with lobbyists to make sure that it doesn't go into effect. The latest law was with COMPETES, COMPETES. Now, that was the law that Biden was implementing so that there was a whitelist and a blacklist of species, meaning that you can only keep certain species of animals if they set it to their whitelist. So if they decide that they want to put dogs and cats in a blacklist, you can no longer keep dogs and cats because of that law. Now, there is something called the Lacey Act that did pass years before, that this would help us to actually ship animals across state lines. because there is certain regulations, like let's say Texas or let's say Arizona. You can't keep native species and you can't export them out of the state. So if they are crossing the state, you have to put the scientific Latin name of the species. You have to label the Lacey-Form Act. There's certain regulations that you have to follow with the transaction with FedEx and as well the shipper. So if the shipper receives the animal and the animal is not supposed to be there, then there can be some type of issue or discrepancy either with duanas or the people who actually take care of the animals. Now, if FWC does get involved at that point, then we're falling into cause, because the more of these issues happen, FWC is not necessarily the enemy, but they're the ones that are trying to find the little pick and pockets to find the causes of what's going on. And they're honestly, it's just overreach the way I see it, because why would you want to stop us from keeping the tegu when it's already happened? The invasion already happened. You know, it's the invasive species has already taken over that population. What are we doing to stop it? And what is going on, like with the Burmese pythons and the reticulated pythons, we have teams that have microchips on the males. And the males during breeding season, they go directly to the pheromones of the females. And we kill the female, cutting down on population slowly but surely. But because lobbyists are not being favored by the transactions of the reptile community or by the funds of the reptile community, or it's not favoring the politician in that form, they're going to stop this animal from being produced and sold in this part of the country. The way I see it, it's like navigation of numbers. We move it a little bit over here, and then we're going to stop the species from being allowed here in Texas, and then something will happen. Hopefully USARC comes in the way and they stop that law and it's banned, and then all the funds go back to the reptile community there. And it's just to shift the numbers for what? You know, it's just to favor their politician look, the way they want to manage things, or just to seem a little bit more pleasant for some type of political party or some reservist. It's really stupid and chaotic, because why are these families that have been keeping, like, for example, tegus for 20 plus years are being degraded from their livelihoods? Like you said, man, like they're being stripped from their animals, and they're being told if they breed the animals, they can be raided. And what good does that do? You know?
Yeah. treating them like drug dealers, it makes no sense.
And it,
Yeah,
honestly, man,
like
this is why, that is exactly why I resonated with this, because I've always felt that way, where I'm like somehow holding my knife against the government, because that's the way I was raised. I was always under that shell, like keep your head behind your back, like you're always on a lookout, like what's going on. It's always a survival mode. And I found that in reptiles, because it's like they're always constantly under attack. Like there's a community that just constantly pushes against anything, whether you're selling fiber, whether you're selling cigars, whatever you're selling. There's always going to be a community that goes against what you believe in, and that's totally fine. You just need to know how to navigate it. And if we have more people, like for example, people who keep reptiles in the United States go up to the ranges of 110%, 100%, right? 78% are not USARC members. $40 for an entire year membership. $40 goes to this organization to help you keep your animals every year. Because without this organization, all of its laws would have already been implemented, and your rights had already been stripped away. You know, $40 can get you a shirt that says USARC that you can rep all year. You can give more every single month. You know, the more people you have. A good thing that I give my customers is I tell them, you buy an animal from me, I give you $40 off plus whatever discount we're working on. Those $40, I want you to spend them on USARC. Get yourself your shirt and support our community, because you can't be keeping an animal that is this beautiful and this exotic. It's a luxury, bro. It's literally a luxury for us to have these animals without helping your own self. So it's kind of redundant. Like, come on, step up the game. The people that already get on board. Go to usarc.org. It's really easy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely important, and I think just alone the experience that we have with the animals alone is well worth it. And you know, like I think you even don't you do like kids parties and like have the kids like hold the animals and take pictures with them? Like, to me, like I've been meaning to actually book you for a birthday party, because that is dope to me. Like, and like that's going to be the most unique birthday party that there is, especially if you're posting pictures with like pythons on your neck and tagos and all those. Do you happen to have any animals on hand right now that we could take a look at?
I do. And we are working. Let me get those out. Let me turn this off here real quick. We are working with other companies. I have worked with other people in the past. If you are looking for mammals or capybaras or anything from the tiny zoo farm, we can work with them and try to get that in collaboration to make it a more bigger jungle. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem.
All righty. I'll bring out a snake right now. This is our Asian water monitor.
Yeah, the monitor. What's this guy's name?
Well, his name was Saphira, but we figured out that he had penises about 2-3 months ago. So we still haven't named his new name, but I'm still going with Saphira. I still call him Saphira. But he is Indonesian. They are centered to Indonesia. The species ranges from very prominent yellows to whites to blacks. You can get them typically in any coloration: orange, yellow, white, black, grayish colors. And you can get them in all sizes and forms as well. Now, the thing with Asian water monitors is that they will reach up to 8 foot long, including with tail. So it's a lot of room. You potentially need a room that is 12 by 12 outside. In the winter, we do bring them in. This is a 2.5-year-old. So I got him about, I want to say yay big, 14 inches with tail.
Yeah.
But he is a wild caught. They bring them directly from Indonesia. But we do have captive bred. I'm trying to get more of the T1 generation so that I can work with my own genetics. But some of the lines that are captive bred are just insane. The T positives are just bright pearl whites, pearl reds. It's insane the coloration you can work with. And the way that we work with these genetics is by line breeding. So if you see this animal, it has white stripes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say her babies or his babies tend to have more of a wider pattern at the tail. So I'm going to take the one with the widest pattern. Let's say a female with a white tail comes out, and I'm going to breed her back to the same male that has that white tail, so that the babies come out with an even wider tail. And then those babies eventually will be even white until you get just a solid color. And that's called line breeding. There's also genetic process of breeding, meaning that if the allele is compatible with one gene to another, meaning if the male is carrying the same allele as the female, you can produce the same visual animal. A lot of people get confused, like, what do you mean by genes or genetics? The animal is actually carrying that in their blood. So they carry this gene that makes them look albino, or they carry this gene that makes them look black or yellow, and that gets passed on to the kids. You can't prove it out until you breed the kids. So if the kid's actually carrying that genetic, you won't know until they actually give offspring. So a lot of people say possible heterozygous or possible het, meaning that it is a heterozygous, meaning it has the possibility to be a het from that animal.
Okay.
Yeah. And with snakes, it's the same thing. Lizards, you tend to have some that are more vibrant in colors or more different. But with boas, anacondas, a lot of the Boidia species, their colors tend to fade, as well as ball pythons. Reticulated pythons, their coloration tends to increase, darken, and become more vibrant within the years. But a lot of other reptiles tend to lose their coloration. A species I would love to keep here in Arizona would be a beaded lizard, but honestly, I can't keep it here because it's native.
Right. That's the, are you talking about the Gila monster?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be pretty dope. Yeah, no, that animal is beautiful, man. My cousin used to have a monitor. I don't think it was a water monitor, but is there different types of monitors?
Yeah, I do. I have Australians. Let me bring out a baby here real quick, and I'll show you a different one. Well, this one actually came from South Bay Reptiles. A good friend of mine. He'll actually be on board on the podcast here within the next months. But this is a Argus monitor from Australia. Oh, there we go.
Oh, we need a quick one.
Yeah, they're all like this, brother. When they're born, they all act like this, and you have to work with them and actually get them calmed down. How Saphira is. But
Yeah, spirit, like you could tell like he was started slowly calming down as he was prowling around a little bit.
you just got to work with it slowly, and allow it to feel you.
Yeah.
His name is Ozzy. He's a male Argus monitor. But
He's very
there is, thank you, brother. There is subspecies. This is just a normal Argus, but the more brighter yellows and oranges come from the species called Flavies. It's a more ornate monitor, but those tend to be beautiful as well. And this is about the size you'll get them. When they're born, they tend to be about half of its size, and they'll get up to 8 feet, 6 feet long.
wow. Yeah, that's amazing. It'd be pretty awesome to have them in your backyard or something, but
That's how I keep them. I keep all of my like the rhinoceros iguanas, and eventually you should come over, brother, so you can see everything. But we
oh yeah,
keep
I
them
definitely
outside,
do
and
come over. You had said something about the ceremony earlier, and I didn't respond to that, but I would love to actually come over and do that. That would be amazing. We have to schedule that sometime.
absolutely, brother, absolutely. But this is Ozzy. Let me go ahead and take him back, and I'll bring out a snake for you.
All right, cool.
All right. I was gonna bring out a snake, but Neo actually just woke up. She is a rhinoceros iguana.
Oh wow. I don't think I've ever actually seen one of those.
So they actually come from Hispaniola, the island of Hispaniola, and the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
Their genus is actually called Cyclura cornuta, and they can vary from bright blues to dark grays. But the reason that they're called rhinoceros iguanas is if you take a look there, that horn will eventually grow a couple inches long, but there's a little horn right above it.
Oh
And
yeah,
the literal meaning of rhinoceros is horned lizard or horned animal. So it
yeah.
technically is a rhinoceros, but it's considered a rhinoceros iguana.
Yeah. Yeah, iguana was my very first lizard. I actually had one I think in middle school. He was pretty cool. I named him Kiwi, and we used to have this like fake tree in my living room, and I would just kind of let him chill up there in the tree, and he would just kick it all day. But it was kind of a pain in the ass trying to capture him at the end of the night. He was fast, and I didn't work with him enough, so he was just like constantly taking off. But very cool.
Definitely, man. It's always, what work you put into your animal and how it's actually reacting to you. If you don't put work into it, man, then you're not going to have a good animal like this. And that's what people don't really understand or sense to get a grab on. They buy an animal from you and like, why is it biting me 2 months later? Well, you haven't touched it,
Yeah, you're just keeping it in its cage, and that's like the same thing with dogs. It's like that's why people have such a stigma with pit bulls. It's because like those are animals that haven't been trained. They're like pit bulls are the nicest dogs on the planet. It's all how you raise them.
Exactly, man. Like people don't like the whole thing about having tigers and vicious animals like that. And I understand. I respect those animals.
Yeah,
But you are able to get that relationship, and even if they do tick off and they kill you 10 years later, that wasn't their fault. That
yeah.
animal just has 10,000 years of evolutionary process that can't be suppressed. you know
Tiger, tiger.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
A cool thing with snakes as well is that there seems to be this, well, there is something called parthenogenesis. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this saying of nature will find a way from Jurassic Park.
absolutely. Yeah,
Nature does find a way because in parthenogenesis, what happens is that the female, if their environment seems to be feeding off some type of energy, that they will never find a way of breeding. Somehow nature finds that out and it triggers the species to create a clone. So the female will give offspring without breeding with any male that are the opposite sex, meaning that it will find a way to fucking breed. And that's
right.
what that guy meant in that movie. Nature finds a way because it's possible. Nature doesn't have barriers, nature doesn't have mountains. And that's a beautiful way of putting it in spirituality and in animals because you're like, there is no binary, there is nothing, we're all the same, whether you're male or female. And that's what makes it even more intense. Like,
Mhm.
this makes it so welcoming for all types of people.
Yep. Have you actually done any like spirit animal work? Like have you done any like ceremony? Because I know I've seen people do like a practice where they try to find their spirit animal. Have you done this before?
I have not. I have not done any of that type of work or shaman work or any type of spirit animal work. The only thing that I deal with spirituality is something that I feel akin with, even to meditation. I
Yeah.
don't push it. If it comes to that point where I'm just like, I need this today because I need it, and that's it, then
Yeah.
I'll feed it. But I'm never to the point to push something new. That's kind of cool that you said that. That just opened up a little pathway in my head. But
Yeah, no, I was wanting to ask you because there's a guy that I listen to. Sorry to cut you off, but there's a guy I listen
no
to.
worries.
His name is Paul Check, and he does a lot of spiritual practices like that. Maybe you can look him up. But he has like a workshop where he teaches people how to find their spirit animal, and I've always been very like interested in that because I'm like, I wonder what it is. It's like it's kind of this thing where you're probably tapping in and whatever animal comes to you, it's just what it is. That's kind of the sense I get from it. But I think it would be a pretty awesome practice to kind of figure out.
It is something that I found with Ogun or the path of Ogun. See, there's
Mhm.
things that we call patekis. There's a whole bunch of stories that follow each pateki. So when you're being read or you're throwing the shells, the 16 combinations will give you 256 possibilities times 400 stories. So you have an endless possibilities of stories that will only be for you that day.
Mhm.
And in the path of Ogun, it talks about how animals resemble you in a sense. So like he would find himself like always roaring with lions when he was pissed off, or always being in the ocean with dolphins and sharks when he had a sense of inspiration.
Mhm.
So he talks about how you yourself can find a resemblance with animals. So there is a difference between momentum animal, the animal that you love, meaning that you keep this animal or you aspire to be like it, and there is the spirit animal, meaning that that's who you are as a representation in the naturalistic world.
Right.
As your spirit animal, I can't tell who it is because that's who I am. My ego, my shadow ego or the dark ego doesn't allow it to be expressed. But because I allow it to speak, I feel like I'm a snake. And I feel like I shed so many times in my life that I continue to grow and grow and expand. But somehow I just find myself consuming everything around me. And that's how I replicate my own spirit as seeing myself in the snake. Now, my momentum animal or my totem animal, that is the bear. I just love the way that bears look. I've never actually taken pictures of them. I've never anything, but I just love the way they are. They're very
Mhm.
large and cuddly, but you mess with them and you're fucked.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that's who I aspire to be because that's who I am, or maybe that's a replication of my aura. But I find myself seeing as I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very transparent person and blunt, but you fuck with me and you fuck with everything. It's over. Like there's no crossing barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like I almost feel like the spirit animals can be happen in phases too. Like as we grow as people, you can kind of go through different animals. And lately I've been getting the sense of well, I've been having a lot of dreams about spiders, and I've been actually overcoming a lot of my fears with spiders. And like the house I live in right now, I don't know why, but black widows love my house, and they're everywhere. And
Same
like
with
I'm
my house.
always like in the past, I've always just been terrified of them, and I always want to kill them. And I'm just like, dude, I got to stop just killing these animals. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting to the point where it's like live and let live, and do what you can to like relocate the animal instead of just killing it. You know what I'm saying? It's just out there being a spider doing a spider thing, and it's like just like we spoke with earlier. It's like that shit reverberates. You know what I'm saying? It's like the butterfly effect, and so you want to put out that good karma. So like I've been really trying to just capture the black widows and relocate them. And I found this, and since I've been doing that, I've just found this real comfortability with them. And so now I have like these little orb weavers all in my house as well, and they're kind of like my friends now. Like I go out to do my laundry, and it's like you're right there, you're chilling, that's your space. I'm right here, I'm doing the laundry. And like I've been having some really crazy dreams about orb weavers and black widows. And so I've been just having this sense of also like it's kind of teaching me like, hey, like sometimes we're so active, right? We're in this active mode, and we want to go conquer the world, and we want to go get everything that we want, and be like Alexander the Great, conquer the world. But what it's kind of teaching me sometimes is that like you kind of got to be like a spider, and weave your beautiful web and sit in it and kind of wait and let the things come to you, and attract what you want, and attract what is out there. And in that sense, the right things will come to you rather than you trying to go and take and take and take. So
And that's exactly what happened, brother. I'm sorry
yeah.
to cut you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It was done. But yeah, that's just kind of what I've been learning from it, I guess.
Yeah, man. Exactly what you just said is what's been happening in my life. You see that? He didn't
Oh,
like
yeah.
when I grabbed his leg,
Yeah.
so he'll let you know.
He's like, nah.
um, so like everything does lead to you once you find what you want. And in like, for example, me, I found myself in a depressive moment where I was going through that. I don't know if that's what it was, but maybe it was just the dark night or just where I was.
Mm-hmm.
But I found myself happy building enclosures or feeding my animals or cleaning their enclosures because everything that I had suppressed or hidden was hidden within me. So everything that I did would calm me down, relax me, keep me in the moment because my mind tends to have monkeys all the time. I'm everywhere. I just love to have one sense, and somehow I think or I express myself in a way where most people think like, hey, this dude has either autism or ADHD, and I understand, it's just the way my fucking brain works. But when I got into the animals, I started working with them, and then I met other people that were doing YouTube. And I met this guy named Chris Carr from Puff and Poses. I believe he works at Earth's Healing, and Dominic Valdenegro. And we started hosting this like little get together. We did it probably for like two months, and it just ended there. And they got their way, or they found something else, whatever. But we were getting to find out a little bit of what needed to be done in the YouTube world. What were our soft areas? What were our hard areas? And one night, Walter the Don, a big DJ here in Tucson, was hosting a safari night, or I think it was like a safari night or something. And I hit up Richard, the owner or the manager there from the bar, because Puff and Poses Chris Carr knew him. He hit him up for me. I hit him up again, and then he's like, "Sure, bring your snakes." I let him know, "Hey, there's no regulation in Arizona. Everything should be fine. I've done expositions before." And then I went in. I didn't take nothing but my camera, my backpack, and one snake. And there from on going there, it was just rolling off and rolling off. It kind of like, that was the moment that the ice just started to form, and the snow just started to evolve. And then from there, it was just, I let everything just come to me. There was places where I wanted to vend and I was denied, and that's totally fine. There was places that I wanted to be, and I was denied. That was totally fine. But then they started just coming to myself, where people wanted me to be here, there. And then out of nowhere, we started doing photography. We started bringing in models and people who wanted to take pictures with exotic animals. We started doing shows with exhibitions. So like you're saying, brother, everything is a spider. A spider builds this beautiful web, but until it builds the web, it can never catch the fly. So it's like, you got to build that beautiful web.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, life's beautiful sometimes. Like just it's like just, I don't know, when you look at it a certain way and you experience life in a certain way, it's really kind of magical, and I enjoy it and I love it. And I've really actually enjoyed this conversation immensely. This has been freaking awesome.
It's beautiful.
And as we're kind of like winding down, why don't you like let us know where we can find you? Tell us a little bit about your podcast that you got coming out. That sounds really cool. Maybe some of your services so that people can reach you, man.
Absolutely. So you can find everything at therealgeorgeofthejungle.com. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're also on TikTok, but we don't use it. So just reserve the name, go follow us. We do have our uploaded website on a monthly, meaning if we have species that we're working, so we upload all those animals on there. If you are trying to work with any particular species, we work with all of them. I work with breeders all across the world, being UK, Florida, California, Montana. We work directly with all those breeders. So any particular species, any chameleon, any type of reptile, even monkeys, any type of animal you can possibly think of, we can help you out with the process. Even with the permits. I'm not talking about Arizona monkeys. A lot of people say, hey, monkeys aren't allowed in Arizona, and that's true. But if you ever desire to move to another state, we can help you through that permit process. We also offer the photography portion. It's not only just reptiles and exotic animals. We do wedding shoots, private shoots, product photography, any type of photography. When it comes to the educational portion, we take out 27 species, if not more. We show those animals in an expose, teaching you a bit of information of each species. We do photographs, 15 stills, and a video between 2 to 15 minutes. That's usually what digresses in a party. And if you do want 2 hours or more, then we ask for a different fund. Other than the exhibitions, we are working to get approved with different schools here within the district of TUSD, so we can work directly with those programs as well. Now with the podcast, we are opening it up on January 14th. Our first guest will be on the 28th or the 24th. I believe it's a Saturday or Sunday. We'll have our first guest there, but it's going to be just a one-on-one personal interview with pretty much mentors that I've met throughout the years and people that I find interesting that, like you, I've never had a closed conversation with, or people that I just want to digest a little bit more info from. The people that we will be bringing on won't just be reptile people or keepers of fauna, but like yourself, keepers of spirituality and practitioners of faith. I do want to question religions, so a lot of people might have a contradiction with religion and politics. I don't really give a fuck. I know that religion is just a key to block you for something bigger. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I would like to see exactly where is your key, or what is it that you're utilizing to actually open up yourself, as everything is a key for that. So it really is specifying on what is your goal in life, what is it that you achieved, and all being with just spirituality.
Oh yeah, awesome. And you're gonna call it spirit animal, correct?
Spirit animal, because essentially
when I saw that name, I was like, hell yeah, I was stoked for it.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, spirit animal will be the name of the podcast. Now, the reason we named it is because everybody has a spirit animal. It's just that we need to figure out what it is. And if we can figure out what it is on that podcast, we sure will. If not, then we'll navigate to figure out whose own is own. Maybe we'll learn more information to better ourselves or better somebody around us.
Oh yeah, that's what it's all about, man. Well, hell, dude, this was like really awesome. I appreciate you. I wish you like plenty of success. I think it's gonna come for sure.
You're working hard.
I love how you have everything mapped out. You seem to have everything dialed in, know what you want, and I just love seeing that. And it's inspired me to actually, get my stuff a little bit more dialed in. I'm kind of all over the place sometimes, but
we're all there, brother. We're all there.
Yeah, I just want to like kind of focus and just get even deeper into it. You know what I'm saying? But much love, George the Jungle. It's been awesome. And yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Peace.